All right, good. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, ready. Let's get started. Um, my name is Ron Dagdag, and today I'll be talking about being a good agentic AI coach. All right. Anyone familiar with this one, these characters? Most likely, yeah. So, with that, I am R&D engineering manager at 7-Eleven, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP. I've been awarded the Microsoft MVP for AI, Windows development, Internet of Things, and mixed reality. So get started. So what are good qualities of good coach? And this year it's the Europe, we had the Olympics. So here's one of the things I've saw where what's a great sports coach, right? Understands the sports and leads by example, profound visionary or thinker, shares knowledge and educates others, right? Teaches others, highly energized and a motivator, knows the athlete and values and respect the relationship. And there's more. Uh, you have to be an effective communicator, a good listener, a disciplined and strong character and integrity, leads by example, very high attitude of work, hard work, commitment to clear passion for the sport. Right? So there's a lot of these different things to become, just to be a great sports coach. Right? More and more, I've noticed. Today we're going to talk about agents, right? These AI agents, and what is it? What is it? What are these agents that they were talking about, and what's the hype around it? And just to kind of clear things up in terms of where is that in the flow in terms of how we build stuff or as these tools evolve, right? Artificial intelligence has been there since 1956, and then it comes with machine learning, and you keep hearing about machine learning. In 1997, I started learning a little bit more about machine learning back in 1999, and when I first saw it, it's like, I don't think this tool is very useful, because it's so slow, it's so clunky. Back then, you know, the devices are not good enough, right? It requires a large machinery. And then you have then deep learning in 2017, and we started thinking about this generative AI in 2021. Has anyone used ChatGPT and all that? And you see that and you start using it more and more, right? So speaking of agents, back in 1999, and I started looking into these collaborative agents, and and that's my point here is that it's been about 20 something years since then, and you're seeing more and more of the applications of what these collaborative or these AI agents now. So anyone familiar with this, the data pipeline flow? And most likely you've done that, especially if you're a backend developer where you have your extract, then you do some transformation of your data, and then you load it with a different system, right, on the database. In generative AI, flow is kind of like that too. If anyone uses ChatGPT, you have your input, right? You identify your input, and then you do some transformation from that input, so, and then it gives you the output, right? So it does all its processing. It's one text at a time, and then it builds up. So you see that as it builds through, it generates that prediction. What is the next word that goes through this, and then until it gives you the whole result. So generative AI app flow is kind of like autocomplete, right? Goes to that. So we talked about ETL. It's more where you have your inputs, then it does some transformation, and then the outputs. Okay. So in traditional software development, anyone here are traditional software engineers, right? we're software engineers. A lot of software engineers are doing code development. Inputs, usually whenever someone tells us, hey, I need I need you to develop a website, or I need you to develop an application. First things you ask, what do I need? What is the input, right? Where do I get the data, right? Sometimes it's numeric, sometimes it's integer. And then you do some calculations, right? Math calculation, your if then else, your for loops and while loop. And then you do the output, right? So maybe some text defined or numeric, some calculation you have to do. The important part is that it can be replicated. Garbage in, garbage out, right? But if you have the correct data in, you do the calculation, and then the data that comes out, it's always good, right? You can test that, easily test it, and see, based from the input, and that's when we start writing unit tests. It can be replicated because of that. In AI software development, now started to look at all these fuzzy input. Fuzzy input, you've seen ChatGPT. What is the input for ChatGPT? It could be anything, right? It could be just whatever the text of whoever is using it. It could be tabular data. You can copy and paste an image, or you can upload, a file, a CSV file, or a markdown text, or some math operations. And so the input is fuzzy. And then and then you talk about the transformation, whatever it's doing in between, understanding it and debugging in between that, there's a lot of fuzzy things. It could be the instruction could be, extract the list of keywords, or it could be rewrite or summarize it, or answer a question. It could be also like, give me, some product ideas or different things, right? And that could be part of the instructions and how it does the transformation. And then the output can be different too, right? It could be text, it could be paragraph, it could be the output of your, it could be JSON, it could be Markdown, it could be another image. So my point here is, on the AI software development, there's the part of it that is probabilistic. And that's where it's changing the way we think, we start doing the development side, right? Knowing which, at the end of the day, these are tools as a software engineer, right? So when do you use traditional software development is important, and when do you use AI software development? So when we're talking about something that can be replicated, something that you need to do some calculation, it makes sense to do traditional software development. It's discrete. And if you need to do some of text processing, or trying to understand, or trying to brainstorm new ideas, then you start looking at it on the AI software development side, which becomes probabilistic. So there's that fuzziness part of it, right? Yeah. So fuzzy input, fuzzy transformation, fuzzy output. But has anyone here have used ChatGPT, and it's always starts from scratch. You start from blank page, and sometimes it doesn't remember what are your previous interaction, right? It always starts from new. So it is important that every time you talk to it, or every time you send data to it, you add more context. The keynote this morning is all about context. Also in AI, and if you want to communicate properly to this AI things, right, you have to provide more context. So there are different ways in how you can provide context. One is instruction prompts. Instruction prompting. So there's what we call system prompt, where you can specify right before it processes any of your questions, you pass those system prompts, right? So it could be, you are a professional assistant, always polite and respectful, those kind of things, right? So those are examples of system prompt. Or you can also give it examples of how you want the output to be. It could be, okay, this is an example of, this is awesome, and then you specify, hey, that's negative word. This is bad, that's positive word. And then now, when it auto completes, it kind of understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to trick it. You're trying to tell it to say the negative part. So it infer from those examples. So those are few shots example. Another one to bring context is what we call retrieval augmented generation. There are some presentations, pretty much anyone attended, and they all talk about rags to riches, and rag here. And then they talk about vector database and all these different things. Doesn't have to be vector database. It doesn't have, at the end of the day, you're bringing in context, bring more data to this chat. So does it have to be some vector database, or it doesn't have to be. It could be from your APIs. It could be from another text, right? Or it could be, from images or pictures, or however it needs to be. At the end of the day, it gets identified as part of your prompt to provide those context. So pretty much a typical example of it in terms of high level is that when the user asks the question, it queries the data, relevant data, and brings in all the necessary information that it needs so that when it sends it to the model, it has the right context. To the large language model, it has the right context, and it would properly give you the result. Another approach is fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is where you give it more examples, but you create a new model. So you're not using, the GPT-4o model or the Llama models, the models that are available out there, or the Phi 3.5 model that Microsoft has. You train a new one based from these transformer models, from pre-trained model, by giving it a bunch of examples of prompts and then the completion, prompt and completion. Give it more example, and then it'll learn, and you'll have a fine-tuned model, and that's what you would use. So there's ways to do it. So in terms of complexity, right? For us, it's just easier to start with, let's do prompt engineering, add it with context. And then if you need more data, you do retrieval augmented generation. And then if you need a fine-tuned model or certain model specifically for it, specifically for that, maybe it's a medical, or something that's fine-tuned for specific for your company or for specific for your application, then you do a fine-tuned model. And of course, the most expensive one is you start from scratch, which is possible, but you need more data and you need more compute in order to do that, right? But the quality is better, because it relates to what you need. So whenever we're looking at all these possible combinations, so the easiest one is, let's do prompt engineering and then retrieval augmented generation. So how do you, these are some strategies how to get better results. First is make sure, just like anyone, I am an engineering manager. I need to be able to talk to my direct reports and give them clear instructions. The same way too, right? Another one is provide reference text. I am an engineering manager. I hired a new person. I need to give them relevant information on what the job they're going to be doing, right? It's the same way here too. Split complex tasks into simpler tasks. Well, if you hire a new person in the team, you don't give them the most complex task. You break it down into something that they can achieve and be able to be successful at it. Give them time to think. If you have a new employee, they haven't really, or they're not familiar with the, where everything is, give them time to finish up some of the tasks. The same way here too. Give the model time to think. Use external tools. Well, do they have the right laptop? That's one of the things. Do they have access? Those are tools. If they have the right tools, they can be productive. Same way here too. If you bring them context and using external tools, sometimes it's embeddings-based search, sometimes it's calculations, specific functions, you can do that. Of course, test changes systematically. Whenever they do an MR, make sure someone else is checking them too, right? So it's just a way to test, right? Test the changes. One way to do that in this AR world, right? It's to evaluate the model output with a gold standard. What do you expect if this is the question? You have your experts that will backing you up, and then you can use it to compare. So let's give some examples. Sometimes that helps to give you that context that we're talking about here. Okay. So this one right here, this is LangChain, right? smith.langchain.com/hub. If you want examples of prompts, this is a good resource, right? I'm creating a chatbot. Okay, I'm going to create a chatbot, and maybe there's one that's related to what you're trying to do. So search this place first, and I think it's a good place to kind of look at what are the prompts that are out there that can be available to you. So let's see if we can find one here. So top favorited prompt maker. So this is an example prompt, right? So being able to just copy this and put it on in your application. So this is a good way to start working on prompts for large language model. Is anyone here familiar with, of course, GitHub? GitHub actually has a marketplace for models now. So if you go to GitHub, models, marketplace models, you can actually play with this, right? So you can actually say, I don't want to use OpenAI, maybe I can use Llama, or we can use Microsoft Phi 3, and I can just say, hello, and it will respond back. You can actually have that system prompt built for you. And system prompt, you can get it from this Langsmith to try it out. Or I found out on ChatGPT, there's a way you can create a prompt. There's a tool that creates a prompt for you for a specific subject. So let's say I want to make a prompt jingle for music generator for GPT-4o model. And it writes a prompt based from the things we were just talking about. First, talked about you are the world's first talented jingle composer, and there's the part of, hey, there's our instructions on what it would do, right? And then chain of thoughts, kind of follow these steps to create that jingle. So it gives you that, one by one. And then what should you not do? So things that's boundaries. So the same way as whenever you're hiring someone, you give them, what you can and cannot do, right? And then give them examples of what is a good behavior, of what it needs to be. Some examples of, hey, this is if the brand description is this, and then this is the jingle, the output and the style of how you would want it. So it gives you kind of an example of what that looks like. So once you have that prompt, so you can just come up with whatever you want, right? You go to, the GitHub marketplace, and you copy and paste that prompt on the system prompt, okay? So that's what I did here. So the same one I get from this system prompt generator, I paste it here, and then I ask, what can you do? And it tells you, kind of like that, right? It tells you like ChatGPT style. And now I have a specific item that it can do, and say, write a jingle for water bottle for dogs. And then started writing and generating the jingle and all that specifically based from this system prompt. So you can play with this back and forth, right? But now I feel like, hey, that looks good. I mean, that looks like a good tool that I can start using, right? Or something that you can actually click code here, and it would give you the code, the JavaScript code. If you need it in JavaScript or C# or Java, you can have the Java code related to this, right? And then with the prompt integrated in, and also now this one is, of course, it's connecting to GitHub, but you can actually get an API key if you want to deploy it in Azure AI. it allows you to do that. It has a path forwarded there. Easy, right? Notice how it changes the way you kind of look at things, right? I mean, I can integrate this to my program, and if I want to create a summarizer or something like that, I can just integrate it with an existing application that I have, because at the end of the day, it's just an API call, and sending those text messages to receive back and forth, right? Yes? Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Okay. So, of course, the magic happens because it has a lot of these, what we call function calling. This function calling allows you to be able to uh, see where you have the meta prompt, which is a system prompt, and then has a definition of what the function looks like. And because of that function, it knows how to, then and if the prompt is this, it changes the way the output looks like. So in terms of agents and how you can build agents with this, that's pretty much what's happening in the background. It knows how to create the function call. And then now that you have the function call, then you can build agents just like this, right? What are AI agents? AI agents are like, you give them a task, you give them tools to create, to use for those tasks, and then it gives you the answer. At the end of the day, instead of generating prediction, just what we were just looking at, now you can let it do things, right? Because it has the set of tools. So there's a lot of information that we can do in order to do this. So one of the example I have here is, you can have an agent where it knows which tools to run. And then because it knows the tools that it can run, it can call those tools. What are tools? So an example of it is, so this one calls ChatGPT in order to, just to give me the result. But there's ways that you can write different tools. So a tool like this is like, I want to get time and date, right? ChatGPT does not know what time it is, right? Because they were trained at a specific point in time, they don't know what the version of time. But if you create tools and you build tools, it would know what time it is because it's part of the context. You can bring those contexts together. And so this is an example of how you can bring, maybe it's an API call or maybe it's something else, right? To add it to your list of tools that the agent can run and can include it in the prompt. And then it will be able to get that going. So let's see how that goes. I will give you examples of how that runs. Okay. So here's an example of it where I ask it to where, what is the current time? What is the current time and weather in Dallas? Okay. So that was the question. But because it has the search tool that it can search the internet, and also it knows the time on my computer, it was able to answer that the current time in Dallas is, of course, this might be old. Let's see if we can run it again. So it knows, it grabs the time on my computer. It's 3:23 p.m. And then it knows that the time is 3:23 and the current weather in Dallas is this. So it brought that context, the right context to before it calls OpenAI. Okay. So just to give an end to this, there are also, one of the things in order to add security to your data set whenever you're building this is you have your user experience, which we talked about. Those are the questions you ask. You have your meta prompt, which is the system prompt and the instruction prompt or function calling. But adding a safety system is also very important. And there are some services out there that adds it before it calls the model. In that way, you have that mitigation layer that whenever before it responds back, it'll be able to filter out, what are good and what are the acceptable items, and based from the output of the model. So those are the things that I believe that would help everyone. So just to summarize, this is very important. If there's only one thing that I want you to take away from this, understanding, like, when do you use traditional software development and when do you use AI software development? If you think that there's a capability that your tool, that your application needs some AI software development, think about it. It's fuzzy. The input is fuzzy. The output is fuzzy. It's harder to test. It's probabilistic, and that is it for today. So here's some links. This is the link to the presentation. If you want the demo that I just presented. Also, if you want to connect with me, my name is Ron Dagdag. If you can connect to me through my socials, LinkedIn is the best place to contact me. Thank you very much.